Let's get the dice up there. All right, in this video, we're going to talk about how the economy destroys itself. Now, I'm going to be reading from Cantillon's essay on economic theory. All right, you all know how much I love this essay. I'm going to wear this essay out because I think it's very important to understand some of the economic forces that were taking place hundreds of years ago when this essay was written, because we can see some of those same economic forces that play out today. And when we look at these economic forces, then we can know exactly what it is that is going to be pushing the economy in the direction that it is, because a lot of times we want to blame this on social impacts or environmental or political or all kinds of stuff, but not realizing that there is economic forces that are underlying, that are more important to understand than a lot of the conspiracy theories that may be out there about what is causing the situation that we are now in. This is a very interesting concept to try and wrap your head around, is the production of a nation and how well that production does for that nation in raising the standard of living. Because when a nation starts to produce a really good amount of products and then starts distributing those products to the rest of the world is sending them money. And then that starts to raise the standard of living. Now, Cantillon described this very well hundreds of years ago. Right? Now, of course, back in the day, they didn't have a central bank with, fiat currencies and stuff like that going on. They were talking about using gold and silver mines as the new money coming into the economy. But the underlying forces that he was talking about, I believe, are still at play and still hold a lot of significance into our economy in the way that we are seeing it. Now, I'm going to read from this essay a little bit, and just to try and kind of get a better idea of what it is that he was thinking back then and how we can kind of use the same information today. Now, it goes something like this. If the increase of money in the state comes from the balance of foreign trade, i.e. from sending abroad articles, manufactured goods of greater value and quantity, then is imported and consequently receiving a surplus in money. Now, this is the situation that the United States was in back during, the great industrial revolution, right? Where we're producing the world's products and sending it out there to the world, and they were sending us money. That's exactly what he was saying back then, right? And this is way before even the United States was even a concept, right? This annual increase of money will enrich a great number of merchants and entrepreneurs in the state, and will give employment to numerous artisans and workmen who provide the goods sent to the foreigner from whom money is drawn. So you think about all that manufacturing that was going on here in the United States and all the good living jobs, wages that came from that. Right? That's exactly what he was talking about there. This will gradually increase the consumption of these industrious inhabitants and will raise the price of land and labor. Right? So you think about that's again what happened here in the United States. Right? But these industrious people who are eager to acquire property will not at first increase their expenditures. They will wait until they have accumulated a large sum from which they can draw a secure interest income independent of their occupation. You think about all the capitalists here in the United States, or the people who want to blame the capitalist here who have acquired too much and don't work hard and have all the access to this money. Well, this is something that Cantillon described a long time ago. All right? So it wasn't set up for them. These guys just took advantage of the situation knowing what it was going to happen, because Cantillon can describe it. Good or bad thing? That's your opinion. All right. Once a large number of inhabitants have acquired a considerable fortunes from this money, which enters the state regularly and annually, they will not fail to increase their consumption and raise the price of everything. Very important to understand there, because this is really what was going on during the time when it first starts to take place. When you are an industrious people and you are selling that product out there to the world and they are sending you stuff, eventually you are going to enjoy that new money. And when that new money comes in, what are you going to do? You're going to increase your consumption. When you start increasing your consumption, you're going to start raising the prices of everything. Now, this is really where the prices start to move. The inflationary scenarios comes from the new money coming in. It's not necessarily the new money, it's the added consumption that comes from the new money. Although these higher prices result in greater expenditures than they at first contemplated, they will, for the most part, continue so long as their capital lasts, right? So these people will continue to, as long as the money flows in, they will continue to increase their consumption, right? For nothing is easier and more pleasant to increase a family's expenditures, and nothing is more difficult or unpleasant than to decrease them. Right? And we know this is human nature. Anytime you get a new job or a higher, increase in wage, you get an inheritance or something comes in where you have new money, what is it that almost everybody does? Right? They start enjoying that new money. They start wearing nicer clothes, they're driving nicer cars, they're taking better vacations, they're eating nicer food, right? They increase their consumption, and that's the problem. If the annual and continual balance has caused considerable increase in the money in the state, it will not fail to increase consumption. Right? This is Cantillon describing this hundreds of years ago. Raise the price of everything and even diminish the number of inhabitants. Right? You think about where is it that's going here in the United States when they talk about the birth rates falling and stuff. Right? It's very difficult to live here in the United States as far as raising kids. Right? It'll lower the inhabitants unless additional products are drawn from abroad proportionate to the increase in consumption, right? So this added consumption now all of a sudden has the prices moving up, making it very difficult for the people there. And what do they start doing? Bringing in foreign production. Right? Again, this is all described hundreds of years ago. Moreover, in the state that have acquired considerable abundance of money, it is natural to import many goods from neighboring countries where the money is rare and consequently everything is cheap. Right? Again, it's the economy here that has now got the new money coming in, increased the consumption, that added consumption, raised the prices of everything, and the higher prices now have the people looking at foreign production saying, man, that stuff is pretty cheap. And foreign production starts to move in. However, as money must be exchanged for these products, the balance of trade will become smaller. The cheapness of the land in foreign countries where money is rare will naturally cause the building of factories and businesses similar to those of the state, but which will not, at first, be as perfect or as highly valued. Think about what's going on in China. Think about the cheap Chinese goods. Think about what it was that was going on here in the United States prior to all the manufacturing leaving the United States and moving over to China. Think about what was going on here in the United States when we were the manufacturing powerhouse, increasing our standard of living. And by increasing our standard of living, we added to the consumption. And that added consumption started driving out the domestic manufacturing and driving in ever increasing amounts of foreign production. See, this stuff was described hundreds of years ago. And really, if you think about it, it was like our video was talking about yesterday. It was the move into luxuries that's doing it. See, even China knows that they are producing far too much stuff, right? You go and look at the article down in the description. They are admitting it at this point, but it's part of their strategy. They know what would happen. If they continue on to try and be an efficient production company, trying to limit their production, to try and be competitive out there as far as the rest of the people and not overproduce like they are, which is essentially going to destroy themselves along with the rest of the people who are out there who are producing those goods and services. And the reason why they're doing it is if they go into overproduction, when the failure of these companies begin to take place, as the prices begin to fall, destroying the manufacturing production output of these nations and these people out there, China, who was in overproduction, will also fail with a lot of their production, but they will have some remaining. And when the dust finally settles, they will be in a position in which that, although they did lose a bunch of it, they will have a strong manufacturing base to continue on. They are literally trying to flood the system with products to destroy the other manufacturers out there. This is part of their strategy. They understand what it is that's going to take place if they don't. You know, and this is why it's really important to understand this stuff, to understand what it is that China's going to do. You think about it, if they lose their manufacturing base, right? Because of the situation that, Cantillon described hundreds of years ago, right? The cost of manufacturing rising in that state because the people there were enjoying a higher standard of living, and that manufacturing finding cheaper places to go, like Vietnam and Mexico and Malaysia or wherever it is that they're going to. What is it that China's going to do to try and bring new money in? See, they were bringing in this new money from all the manufacturing they were doing like the United States did. But when the United States finally realized it was like, hey, we can't be the manufacturing base anymore, they stopped the gold standard and started issuing out debt. That issuance of debt started bringing the new money in. China started bringing new money in from the manufacturing. So we shifted our manufacturing base from the United States to China. We got new money in from the debt issuance. China started bringing in new money from manufacturing. Now what is it China's going to do? Their manufacturing is starting to leave. We're still issuing debt. We're good, right? I mean, we're not good, right? But we're in a position in which that we can still bring in new money. We have the printing press. We have debt issuance. We got the world using the world reserve currency. China doesn't have any of that stuff. So what are they going to do? They either have to save their manufacturing base, which means that they have to destroy the other manufacturers out there in the rest of the world. And unless you physically go and bomb them, you're going to have to figure out a way that they could just not simply operate. And if you flood the globe with products, those people will fail. You're going to fail too, but you won't fail as much as they will fail. And that's their strategy behind it, because they're not going to be the world's debt issuer. And they're not going to have the manufacturing to compete against all these other global manufacturers out there. So an only way to do it is to literally flood the markets with the products, destroying those other nations, and that way they can continue on in operation. Otherwise, they're going to get taken over, just like Cantillon described, and the manufacturing is going to leave. And unless they can come up with a way of being a debt issuer like the United States is, which is very unlikely because nobody's going to trust China enough to buy their buy their bonds like the U.S. Treasuries. So they're screwed, right? They have to figure out another way, and I believe this is it. All right. They are the forces of darkness. Selling doom for clicks. Noble. Hey, thanks, Greg, man. I'm glad you're not finding any useful information in any of this stuff. I'm glad that I'm just out here being a fearmonger, spreading New World Order propaganda bullshit, and I'm glad you're not getting anything out of it. Go find another channel, bro. All right. Kyer, my band hammer is not swinging at the moment. You're good. All right. YouTube bans words and comments. All right. Crime pays. Look at Highway Rick. I know, but YouTube bans comments and words like collapse. Yeah, I found where the algorithm doesn't like certain words, and then I've had, I remember one time I had titled the video New World Orders, and I was talking about global orders for production. New global orders, not like the New World Order, elite is coming down on you. I was talking literally about new orders of production. Didn't have anything to do with the New World Order. However, because those words were used inside of the title, YouTube literally put up a link to describe what the New World Order is so that I wouldn't be spreading misinformation, even though I wasn't even talking about the New World Order. That's how sensitive that algorithm is. Did I just get a super chat? I did. Thank you very much, Jose Flores, for the $1.49. I saw another super chat up there. Who sent that one? It was Ordinary Bitcoin. Thank you so much for the 99 cents, man. I really appreciate the support, guys. All right. Listening on lunch. Thanks for all you do, helping us understand and process all this. Yeah, you bet, Luke's email. I mean, I really enjoy coming out here. I mean, this is how I'm figuring out this stuff as well. Breaking these old essay, I really like Cantillon's essay because it's easy enough to read and it's fairly short. The 3 chapters on the increase and decrease of money to the state are incredibly valuable information inside of it. But if you can see the economic forces that he was describing back then, and you can recognize them happening today, then you know that this isn't stuff that is being necessarily pushed upon us by an elitist people, but maybe the elitist people are actually taking advantage of the situation because they know what's happening. We don't understand what's happening. They do. They take advantage of it, and we blame them for it, right? Well, knowledge is power, All right. How similar is what China might go through in the near future, similar to what Japan went through in the 90s with a stagnant economy. Well, that could very well end up happening. Yeah. I don't care about the new world. There's nothing we can do. I want to know what the next Black Swan event will be, most likely for the cashless society, and what will take its place. All right. So that's okay. I mean, I really appreciate what you do, Simon. I'm reading Cantillon's essay now. Well, good for you, man. It's a great read. And, I mean, some of it's kind of old, outdated, talk about horses and wagons and villages and weird shit like that. But for the most part, when he's breaking down a lot of the stuff that he's talking about as far as like the increase and decrease of money to the state, man, that stuff is pretty impressive as far as how accurate it describes what happens in the economy when that new money starts flowing through. Now, when you think about like some of the other things that he was talking about, like even later on in the essay when he's talking about the flow of money, like what ends up happening when that money starts to leave the state and what it is that the legislation will do, like they make it illegal for gold to leave the country, and when they do that, the price of gold in that country really starts to go up because there's risk. Once you put risk, like if you take this gold out of this nation, you're gonna die, right? Well, now all of a sudden, if you can get the gold out of the nation, man, that's worth a lot of money because you have all this risk associated to it. And there was a group of people out there who made a lot of money doing just that. That was their whole job, was to get the gold out of that nation. Now, Cantillon describes it way back in the day, and I'm not going to draw a circle around that group of people, but he names them, particularly. So, all right, let's see here. I only use cash, so I don't participate in the insanity like you. All right. It's not that unexpected. Guys, houses never go down. Real inflation at 4% or higher. Alrighty then. Okay, not like Jamie, not single family housing. BlackRock will own all the houses soon enough. Wait, what do you think about Real Page? I'll go rent price fixing. I think anytime you ever do any kind of price fix, anytime you ever try to do any kind of thing where you're going to go into the market and regulate or put some kind of limitation or something of that nature, you are going to create issues in other spots. Like there's no, granted, I will give it to a lot of people that say, man, if you just let it happen, it is just going to make it all, horrible for a lot of people. But the free market and allowing the market to find its own prices is by far the most efficient, best way to bring good products at the cheapest price to the people, right? And as much as anybody wants to believe that you can have government interference and try to regulate that, anytime you ever take a product and you take a customer and you put a middleman in between it, you are going to make it more expensive. I don't care what it is. Like insurance, health insurance is a great example of that. Government cannot make anything cheaper. They just can't do it. There's no way. Hey Simon, the ECB and other big guys like Sweden are purposefully saying they will lower interest rates first just so we would be in scenario of expensive dollars. What do you think about this? What do you think about this matter? I mean, well, until it actually happens, I mean, the threat of it, I think is just a credible threat. But I mean, ultimately it would. I mean, if they start lowering their interest rates, what it's going to do is it's going to start increasing the value of the dollar. Now, if it starts increasing the price of the dollar, right, what that's going to do is make it more expensive for the United States to export their stuff, right? So other nations won't be able to come up with as many dollars to buy the goods and services from the United States. On the flip side of that, what it will do, it will make the dollar stronger. So all the goods and services that are out there outside of the United States will become cheaper for the United States. So those nations will be able to export their things to the United States at a cheaper price. So, I mean, what is it? what's going to happen? I don't know. Like, until the actual event takes place, the credible threat alone will start moving people in a particular direction, as if that event has already taken place, if the threat is credible enough, right? So, I mean, what is it going to be until it actually happens? I don't know. Like, I really don't keep that close tabs on the ECB. You know, I'm really paying more attention to monetary policy of the Federal Reserve itself and what it is that they plan on doing. A lot of times people will look at some of the things that are taking place outside, like the war, or, you know, maybe decisions made by, you know, the European Central Bank or something of that nature, and think that the Federal Reserve is going to be reactionary to that. That's not what's going to happen. Those people are reacting to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is acting independently, and they are working off of the idea that an inflation expectation was persistently too low rather than too high. Their whole goal and job and everything that they are doing right now, with everything that they say within the statements coming out on the corporate media, is an intent to try and bring inflation expectations higher, not to bring them down. Don't believe that for a second. Every time they come out and say, sticky, it's hard, it's sticking around, may have to go out, I don't know, whatever. That's them putting out there the information that will then put it into your head that they have lost control of inflation. Inflation is going to be elevated for a significant amount of time. They win. That is the Fed's strategy right there, to get your inflation expectations elevated. That's what they want. That's what they got. They're winning. They get it, right? And so this is really where, like, a lot of people are calling me like a Fed apologist or a shill or all kinds of stuff, because what I'm seeing coming from the Fed strategy and what is actually taking place out there within the people, and the belief that there's going to be inflation coming into the future, is what the Federal Reserve wanted. Like, that's what they were looking for in John Williams' speech, Monetary Policy for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World, dated November of 2018. And in that speech, that's exactly what they said the problem was that the inflation expectation was persistently too low and had been for decades. And that they needed to get the inflation expectation elevated because the monetary policy was constantly swimming upstream against a current of inflation expectation that was persistently too low rather than too high. I mean, understanding that and how that is now being used within the Fed strategy itself is such a esoteric way of thinking. Like, nobody has this idea. Like, literally nobody. I've listening to read millions of comments, listening to articles and other YouTubers out there and stuff like that. I go and I look for some of the information that I have found that talks about the monetary policy with the average inflation rate over time as opposed to a 2% target. Nobody sees this stuff. It's literally nowhere out there in the mainstream media, in the corporate media, or on anybody's radar or paying attention to it. And because of that, they have the inflation expectation exactly where they wanted it and needed it, and it's elevated. Perfect for them. This is so odd for most people to try and wrap their heads around. If they have never heard this information, if they never heard anybody talk like I am right now, they are confused and they are shaking their heads, wondering what the hell it is that I am even talking about. But this is literally their monetary policy, is to conduct it through the corporate media in a way that has your perception then elevated in the inflationary scenario, because that is what they needed in order to conduct their monetary policy. It's so strange to think, but that's what's going on. Thank you so much, Nitrim. Thank you very much for the $5, the thumbs up, man. I really appreciate it. Do we have another one down there? Did I miss it? Yeah, there it is. Hey, City Star Productions, thank you very much for the $4.99, man. Do they manipulate the gold market in the similar fashion like the silver market? Well, yeah, and you got to also understand, like, those markets, that's like not the Federal Reserve doing that. Not in my opinion. That's more of like the big players within like the banking system, the financial system itself. Guys like the JP Morgans and such. Now, if you think about it, there is so much silver out there. It is unreal. There is like just an ungodly amount, almost like an endless supply of silver. But most of it's paper. So if you want to buy or invest into silver, there are so many products, ETFs, ideas of where it is that you can put money into silver, but not in the physical, right? You can't, there's not that much physical out there. In fact, I couldn't tell you what the paper ratio to silver is, but I'm assuming it's better than 100 to 1. For every 1 ounce of silver, they sell 100 ounces of silver in the paper market. Well, now you think about that for just a minute. Is that manipulated? Well, hell yeah, it's manipulated. If every single investor who has bought in paper silver, like the ETFs or some, bought into some other fund or something out there that is claiming to be a physical silver holder, what if those investors were to cash out and say, okay, I'm dumping that investment and I'm going to go down and I'm going to pick up the physical silver with that same amount of money, it would wipe out the silver supply instantly. There would be nothing left. It would be gone, right? So is the manipulation out there? Yeah. And if you have 100 paper ounces of silver and a bunch of people out there investing into that 100 paper ounces of silver, that's a lot of liquidity. That's a lot of money going into a market that really doesn't have that much physical. So yeah, I can imagine the supply of silver is now endless. And if you have an endless supply of silver, then you have a price that's probably going to be pretty low, considering you have a place for everybody who wants to put money towards silver to put money towards silver, right? If they had like $100 and they could not find any silver out there, and they're like, man, I want to put this $100 towards silver, then the price of silver would move up until somebody says, I have an ounce of silver for you. Boom, there you go. Right? But if somebody says, I have $100 and I want to buy silver, and I don't care if it's paper or silver or physical or whatever, I just want to buy some silver. And the people are like, oh yeah, here, here's a contract for some silver. You better give me $100, right? You see how much money can flow into silver? Like, it's totally manipulated market in that sense. There's going to come a time, even with all the paper out there, right? There will come a time somebody's going to want to manufacture their product. They're going to want to build a phone or a computer or something, and they're not going to have the physical silver available to them. I don't care what the physical spot price is with all that paper manipulation inside of it. If you are a producer and you need silver and you can't find it, you will pay any price regardless of what the spot price says out there, right? You'll be like, anybody got any physical? Because I need it right now, and I don't know how much you want, right? That's really what the question will come down to. So the paper manipulation game that's within silver gives me very little hope on investing in silver, right? Unless the whole system crashes for some reason, I don't see any reason why there would be any change to that paper manipulation game. That doesn't give me a whole lot of hope for it. Now, what that does do is put it in a very unique position in which that dang silver prices are undervalued, very undervalued, like significantly undervalued, like unloved, unappreciated, unnoticed. That doesn't really describe a whole lot of stuff out there. Sitting at what, 50% of its all-time high, just slightly above 50% of its all-time high, right? How many products out there can you say that about? None, right? Silver is by far one of the best places that you could ever put your money right now, in my opinion on that. Just from that whole manipulation game. I mean, if you're worried about economic collapse coming into the future, there's really nothing else out there quite like silver. I mean, maybe cryptocurrencies on a lesser extent, but silver is it. There's really nothing else, right? It's away from the third party claim. 5,000 years of proven history behind it, right? Definitely a useful item, not only for electrical components, but the medical industry and everything else that, silver has been used for as far as its, commodity use. There's really nothing else like it. I mean, it is so unloved, unappreciated. It is like, that's the manipulation behind it, is to literally make people unaware of it. That's the major manipulation. Because if you think about it one more time, I'm gonna drop silver because I actually got to go back to work here. But if you think about it like this, there is just shy of 1 billion ounces produced every year, right? 900 million ounces of silver or something of that nature, right? 50% of that goes to industrial use right away. So already you only have 450 million ounces that is even investable, right? For investment purposes. The rest of it's going to industrial use. So let's just think about this for just a minute. 450 million ounces available for purchase for the entire globe. Like, you take every single man, woman, and child in the United States and they go out to buy 1 ounce of silver, that would essentially eliminate the entire world production for investable purpose, for investable silver. That's just the United States going for 1 ounce. Like, include Mexico and Canada and Russia and China and India and all the other places out there who may be interested in silver too. And if everybody just wanted to get just 1 ounce, just 1 ounce of silver, not even a bunch of it, less than $30 worth of, less than $50 worth of silver. If everybody went out there to try and acquire just $50 worth of silver, it would immediately wipe out all the available silver out there. It would be none to be had. And these corporations out there who use silver to build their products would pay any price for it. Man, what a unique position to be towards. Right? And this is what the manipulation game is preventing from happening. Like, I'm cool with it, man. Like, keep that silver keep it suppressed. Keep it suppressed as long as possible. And I'm going to keep loading up on as much physical silver as I possibly can. And if it stayed at $20, $30 an ounce until I was 80 years old and it jumped up to $1,000 an ounce, then that would be totally cool with that. Like, and if it doesn't move, and it stays at $20 or $30 an ounce for the rest of my life, and I was able to give that to my kids, awesome. There is no bad move, in my opinion, when moving towards silver, towards physical silver. All right, what time is it? All right, I got 5 minutes left, guys, and then I got to go. I'm going to get through these super chats. Michael John, thank you so much for the $5. McDonald's prices are so high that poor people can no longer afford their outlet cheap food. I think this is handwriting on the wall for all of us. Yeah, I don't believe that fast foods is cheap food. I don't think that that's poor people food. I think the convenience of it makes it like, seem like cheap food and all that. But ultimately, the more people that I know who are, here's the thing, like, the people that I know who spend a lot of money on food are usually people who are eating out or eating prepackaged stuff, right? The people who don't spend a lot of money on food are people who cook at home, who know how to prepare meals that, where you use bulk items like rice and flour and wheat and stuff. I mean, it's just like you use things that are not necessarily going to be expensive for the individual portion of it, but if you can take like bulk items and make those individual portions cheaper, right? Like frying your own chicken instead of going down to the mini mart and buying fried chicken or something, moving on. All right, Nitrim. Thank you for the $2. Do you think China is BSing about new silver finds? I don't know, but even if they did have new silver finds, like how significant could they possibly be to add to the world production in a manner that would then deplete or that would then start lowering the demand for it? Like, what I'm saying is just like being able to provide the world with the demand they have for silver. Is it a major production that's going to change the way that they produce or their input costs going into their solar production or something? Like, I mean, it would have to be pretty significant in my opinion as far as that goes. So as far as I can tell in the things that I have like researched, all the cheap, easy access is gone. Like the cheap, easy access oil, the cheap, easy access gold, all the cheap, easy access stuff, all the commodities out there is gone. It's going to get harder and tougher and take more technology in order to acquire those things, more expensive labor and costs and everything that goes into it. So, are they actually going to do anything that's going to create a situation in which that it starts to impact the economy on a significant way? I doubt it. Right? I mean, they might do some for a while, but then it'll just be another part of it. I mean, I think these other nations are loading up on the precious metals, but whether or not that's to deal with an economic collapse or to deal with the changes to that Basel endgame and the way that they hold their assets and stuff, I mean, who knows? There's a lot of things that are happening right now on the world financial banking system as far as the way that these banks, these sovereign nations and their internal banking systems, the way they deal with each other when it comes to, foreign transactions and stuff. there's a global effort right now to try and make this a much more uniform regulated system, and it's not working out very well for the Federal Reserve in the way that we have our system set up. I would imagine the disruptions from that probably have a lot of people feeling pretty insecure about what it is that's happening. And the only way to get out of that third-party claim is to be in precious metals. And this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of these central banks are loading up, is literally because of the confusion that is happening out there. And it's just like, man, if you don't know and you have all these third-party claims, you might be like, man, I think I want to get out of this third-party claim, or at least have something, you know, sitting out there on the shelf that doesn't have that third-party claim. There's nothing else out there but gold, right? Gold is it. That's it. That's the only one that's going to do it. All right, what do we got here? Okay, I got like 4 more minutes, guys. All right. All right, depends on what you are eating. Yeah, that's for sure. All right, regardless of what Ben says, Bitcoin is worth 61,000 today, while silver is $30 an ounce. The market has decided. Okay, Mr. Horology, that's, I mean, you can compare these two and relate them, correlate them together, but I don't necessarily think that that's the same thing, but a lot of people kind of do that thing. All right, Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the $10. They would just bust the trade. This happened in 22 with nickel. Chinese investors was going to lose their whole amount, and the LME busted and reversed the trade, and trade traders who were right lost out. Yeah, they did. I remember there was a nickel manipulation thing happening back then, and it would be fun to actually learn a little bit more about that. All right. Right on, Brody All-Nighter. Thank you, guys. All right. I still don't understand the appeal of Bitcoin. Okay, well, I'll tell you what it is that I like about Bitcoin, right? I mean, I'll give you 2-minute rundown on why I like Bitcoin, and then I got to go back to work. But when it comes to Bitcoin, you think about it, there is very few things out there that you can do a transaction in which that nobody can stop it from happening. Now, you can do a cash transaction, you can do a physical trade like silver, or, you know, even any other bartering tool that you might have out there. But that physical presence is needed, right? In order to make it happen. Now, you could put some trust in it and put it in the mail and send it off, which, you know, I mean, there could be some confiscation things that could happen inside of that, or just the risk of it just not making it to its destination. So that's like kind of the loss of appeal when it comes to these particular physical items in order to do that type of transaction where it's going to be non-stoppable. That's what I guess I should say. It's not like anonymous, but it isn't stoppable. So like if the government wants to stop a transaction that's from the bank, they can do that. They can say, shut this bank account down. Now, they can't necessarily stop you from using physical paper, like a paper transaction or barter. And that's where Bitcoin steps in, because it's much like that physical transaction, but it's digital, so it's done over the internet. Cool thing about it is that once you initiate that transaction, nobody's stopping it. No government, no authority, no person, nobody's stopping it. Once that has been initiated, it's going through. So now we think about that. If you know somebody who you're doing a transaction with who lives over in a foreign nation and you want to be able to send them some funds, you can do that with Bitcoin, and there's nothing that's going to stop that from happening. You may have a problem sending physical money. Definitely you would have a problem using the banking system. Right? So now you think about it, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool feature to have as far as being able to transact with somebody and to have that security that the authorities can't stop it from taking place. Nothing out there really does that, right? Just Bitcoin, just cryptocurrencies, right? There's a few of them out there that'll do it. But now there's something else that it does that is really unique, that nothing else can really do. Because if you have a bank account, you got a third-party claim. If you have physical item, You have the ability, or there's the chances, the risk that it's going to get stolen from you, or that you get separated from it. Now, what is it that you could possibly do out there, unless you trust somebody else, the third party? What is it that you could possibly do to secure all your funds? Like, you got to cross borders. You're going to go to jail. You're going to have issues where you can't take physical with you. You can't do it. What are you going to do? See, you can memorize the 64-digit key to a private Bitcoin wallet. Now, I know that's not exactly easy, but you can do it. I've done it. I did it with an Ethereum wallet one time, right? I memorized the 64-digit key and literally carried the money around in my head. Now, you can cross borders. You can go to jail. You can have everything stolen from you and left out naked on the street, and you still have all your funds because they're locked up inside of your nugget. That is way cool. Way cooler than just about anything else out there, because now you don't have any trust in anybody else out there except for the system of Bitcoin and the protocol that is going to function going into the future. And I do believe that the Bitcoin protocol is still working just the same as it always has, with no deviations or changes to it, right? I mean, there is the forks and all the other stuff, but there's no failure of the Bitcoin protocol. There is failure within the systems that people have used Bitcoin with, the exchanges and the frauds and stuff like that. But the Bitcoin protocol itself, the program itself, is valid and it's good. And because of that, and those features that I have talked about, is one of the reasons why I agree with the holding and the purchasing of Bitcoin. Right? I think it's something totally different from silver. It's totally complementary to the precious metals markets, to the precious metal holdings. It's not contradictory. It's not a competition. It's complementary. Right? Alrighty, guys, this was a lot of fun, but I have got to go back to work. Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the $2. They manipulated the nickel, and JP Morgan delivered the rocks. And delivered rocks, that's right. It was. They had a bunch of, like, stones or something in the vault that everybody thought was actually nickel. Wasn't it like nickel ore or something? And it was just, yeah. Talking blockchain more than the coin itself. Yes, I am. You're absolutely right on that one. Have you read the manifesto of the guy that set fire outside the Trump trial? I didn't. Alrighty, guys, this was a lot of fun, but I got to be back at work in 2 minutes, so I got to go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We got 475 people watching with 163 likes and $31.47 in super chats, because you guys are always so generous and supporting the channel and everything that you guys do. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Uneducated Economist. You let me know.